This is Ghost Hunter Live. No, God, I messed up the very first one. It's gonna be one of those things, guys. This is Ghost Hunter Advice Live.
Advice from the pros. Stories from the haunted. You're listening to the Ghost Hunter Advice Podcast.
All right, guys. Thank you for joining me here on the YouTube channel. This is going out exclusively to the Ghost Hunter Advice YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're trying to get the numbers up here, but hey, it is what it is. Today's episode is brought to you by our show sponsor, Truly Odd Teas. If you guys have been following the podcast, you know that is my company, and it's something that I'm doing to be able to continue doing this full time, and something that I wanted to do for you guys. There's an entire line of ghost hunting and ghost themed t-shirts there at trulyoddtees.com. Head over there, weird up your wardrobe, and use Ghost Hunter 10 at checkout to take 10% off your order. All orders over $75 ship free inside of the continental United States. And I'm wearing one of those shirts right now. Super comfy, super soft. All right, I'm joined today by Matt Barron, the paranormal consultant and the host of Paranormal Truth Podcast. Matt, how you doing, man?
Hey, I'm here, brother, and I love that. Weird up your wardrobe. That is awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah, just I was talking to somebody. I was like, yeah, just kind of weird up your wardrobe. Oh, that's a tagline. I'm going to use that.
I like that. I like that. Actually, I just got some new merch myself. As you can see, the Wiki Queen and I ordered our own merch.
Nice.
So
I like the hat.
Yeah, I like it too. And just like the one that you have, it's actually comfortable. I'm really enjoying it. It said it was embroidered, so it kind of threw me off that it's screen printed, but nice quality, feels good. Hers is embroidered, but yeah, she hasn't taken that thing off.
No, they're comfy. I've got a Ghost Hunter Advice one. I've got another one for another podcast that I do. I love them. And it's one of those things, like having the merch is just another revenue stream. It allows us to do this full time. So I'm able to go out and investigate. I'm able to make my audio business my full-time job now, because of things like Truly Odd Teas, and with doing the audiobooks, setting up the sound stage and the sound booth here. It's huge. It's an actual business now, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thanks. All right, so now getting into today's episode, we're going to be talking about categorizing hauntings. So there's like the big three categories that you guys have heard about that's in every ghost hunting book. There's intelligent hauntings, residual hauntings, and then poltergeist, human agent. And those tend to be the three buckets as we're doing cases, whether it's residential, business, or if you're a hobbyist and you're going to these public haunts and renting space. Those are kind of the three buckets that all hauntings get thrown into. So we're going to take a minute and break those down first. And then we're going to talk about what it's actually like once you get into this, and start seeing this stuff firsthand, and how, maybe it's not so cut and dry.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. So the big thing that everybody's thinking about right now is intelligent hauntings. That's kind of what comes to mind when we're talking about ghost hunting. We're talking about getting into EVPs. So an intelligent haunting is a haunting where there is an intelligent entity there, hence the name.
Yeah.
And it's where you have some sort of disembodied consciousness. Some people think it's human. Some people think it's not human. You start getting like religious theories and stuff where it's angels and demons and all that stuff. But there's some sort of intelligence there that is acting on its own. It's manipulating the environment around it, and it has some sort of purpose, desire, or drive.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's where you're getting intelligent EVPs. You're getting answers to your questions that you're recording. You're getting communication across the spirit box, and you're seeing on film, well, not really film anymore. I don't know what to call the digital stuff. You're seeing on camera manifestations of shadow people actually interacting with the environment as it is.
Correct. Yep. And basically the short and easy version for those of you just starting out is think of it like another person's there and interacting with you, just like Tanner and myself interacting right now, or interacting with you guys. That's 100% the way to think about it.
And then from there, we get into the more classic ghost story of some repeating haunting. These are going to be your residual hauntings, and there's two camps here. One of them is that there is an intelligent spirit there, but it's trapped in some sort of loop, and it's replaying things over and over. The most common story there is going to be the lady in white running through the castle and jumping off the balcony on the anniversary of her death every single year. Um, the second camp in the residual haunting is stone tape theory. That's where there's something about the environment. Maybe it's the minerals in the ground. Limestone and quartz are two stones that are talked about a lot with stone tape theory. There's an emotional explosion. Something happens there. It's trapped and recorded, similar to a VHS tape. If you know what that is, you know what that is. And then it replays when conditions are right. Maybe it's an anniversary, maybe it's weather related, or maybe it's emotional. There's an emotional trigger from the people there in the environment that kick off the replay. But it's the same thing over and over and over again. It doesn't change. There's no real intelligence there. It's just a natural recording.
Yeah, and believe it or not, a lot of the cases and a lot of the evidence I've seen, especially from this area, is Gettysburg.
Mhm.
Gettysburg is notorious to be a haunt. Now, a lot of people go back and forth whether it's intelligent or not, but given most of the evidence I've seen, it's residual. Very little interaction with the general public, and you're absolutely right. Anniversaries are the biggest one, and a lot of times during or after reenactments out there, that's when activity really picks up.
Mhm.
But I have a question for you. Why is it always a lady in white?
I think that's just lore. So there's a theory there. So why they appear in white or in death shrouds? Well, a lot of people were buried in white shrouds and death shrouds, and that's why ghosts have the sheet over them. That's where a
Mm,
lot of the lady in white comes from. But a more practical theory is that it's a light anomaly, and what we're seeing is actually so bright during the manifestation, it's whitewashed. So it
yeah.
just looks like an intense bright light. It's not actually a white dress or anything. That's just how it appears. There's also the thought of how ghosts actually interact with us and how this is actually happening. It's not in the physical world. It is manipulating our actual minds and overlaying itself over getting past the filters, overlaying itself over somewhere in the connection between our eyes and our brain. And it's happening in our heads. And that's why we tend to see what we're expecting to see. So you'll
Mm,
see a lady in white, you'll see something else. There's a little bit of a difference. If you have three people in a room and they see a haunting, they see a ghost or something, there's going to be a little bit of variance. And there is anyway. If you have a bank robbery, there's going to be variance between how they describe what happened and how it happened and what the guys looked like. There's a little bit more as far as like the color of the dress, the detail that each individual sees. It could be how sensitive they are to seeing that stuff, but it could also just be how what they were expecting to see,
mhm.
and how that interacted with their mind. Their
I just
mind, you
find
know?
it I just find it funny that every time you hear a report of something, it's always a lady in white. It's like, okay.
Yep.
It's almost like you can pretend to have some sort of gift. Just, someone telling you about a haunted location, be like, there's a lady in white there. 99% of the time, you're going to be correct. Like,
Mhm.
how'd you know?
Yep. Yep. We've got a black Aggie here, and it's usually described as a lady in white. And I'm like, why?
Hmm. Yeah,
Why?
Katie's church, a bunch of other places around here. Yeah, always a lady in white.
Mhm.
Every once in a while, a shadow figure, but it's mainly a lady in white.
But those are residual hauntings. And then moving on from that, there's poltergeist, which translates into noisy ghost. But when we're talking about it in this realm, it really gets more into the research that was being done by parapsychologists. So we look at poltergeist more as human agent. There's some sort of um, latent psychic ability that is triggered by stress that sometimes manifests their subconscious in something that could seem like a second creature or second intelligence there, but the manifestations and everything pop up around explosive situations in that one person's life, usually an adolescent who is just about to go through puberty, and with therapy and with counseling and help, that tends to calm down activity as well as puberty. Once they're through puberty, 9 times out of 10, according to the research and according to the Society for Psychical Research, activity stops.
Yeah, and to me, poltergeist activity could be considered one of the most dangerous for me at least, just because of how unpredictable it is. But that's why a lot of times if you feel like something's going on, sorry, the Wicked Queen just showed up.
Hi, Tanner.
Hello.
Oh, thank you.
Bye, Tanner.
Never know who's gonna pop in Pinkie Pie Studios. But that's why a lot of times with a lot of my cases, I find out what's been going on. You know, what has there been any type of quote unquote attitude adjustment? Has anybody been different recently? More arguing, more fighting, and there's a lot of theory about poltergeist, and then it's just like with orbs. There's a couple sides of the fence on this. I don't know where you stand with this one, Tanner, but to me, a poltergeist isn't an entity. There is no identity to it. It's just a physical manifestation of, like you said, emotions. And you can't just pick and choose, like, oh well, that's John who's doing this. No, there's no identity to this. It's literally an energy. There's just an energy that's lashing out. It's like a bomb that just gets set off.
Yeah, and that's where a lot of parapsychologists stop, and they want to throw all hauntings into this one bucket.
Mhm.
Just about everybody has their favorite bucket, and they're going to try to dump like 98 to 100% of the stuff they encounter into one of those buckets, like with the residual, with the thought process or the belief that it's a human spirit trapped in a time loop. All residual hauntings are now a type of intelligent hauntings.
Yeah.
With any sort of paranormal activity, if you subscribe more to like the parapsychology side of things, where this is a manifestation of human emotion, everything is poltergeist activity, or it's some sort of latent psychic ability or psychic activity, which there may be a little bit of truth there. But when it comes to categorizing hauntings, we've used these three as kind of like our guidelines for, I was gonna say decades, but probably over a century now,
At
and these
least.
being like the hardline buckets for us, but it gets a lot more nuanced. So I did an episode not too long ago about reflective hauntings,
Mhm.
which are kind of a toss up. It could be more poltergeist, it could be more intelligent. There's something about the property itself that heightens and magnifies emotion and causes manifestations. And it could be an entity that is, we'll say, inhuman. It does not have a personality, the way that we understand it. It does not have drives or intelligence, the way that we understand it, but it borrows from those people that are in the environment and reflects it back in an attempt to maybe communicate.
Yeah.
So when we pump a lot of positive energy and activity into the household, the manifestations go from being negative to positive. Like there's a swing there.
Mhm.
It basically is what it eats.
Yeah.
From that, we've got complex hauntings. You mentioned Gettysburg. Battlefields are huge, a great opportunity to be able to study complex hauntings. We have the Chickamauga battlefield here.
Mhm.
Years ago, we were doing some stuff with a scout troop where we were doing an overnight ghost hunt, and we camped on the battlefield, and we got to experience this regiment march through the middle of our campsite. We didn't
Oh
see
wow.
anything, we heard it. So, like,
Mm.
we could hear the horses, we heard their hooves, we heard the men walking, we heard the horses neighing,
Oh wow.
we heard little bits and pieces of talking, and we could kind of feel it move through the area. There was a coldness, there was a crispness to the
I can
air, and we experienced that. But we also have stories, and we got EVPs that were directly responding to what we were saying. There's stories of
Mm.
people having conversations with soldiers on the battlefield, particularly in lookout spots or snipers' nests. And so you have a mix. You have that residual style. You have a couple of spots there because the battlefield is massive,
Yeah.
where you have more intelligent activity. So I would label that more of a complex haunting. And I've found when we do find real activity in a location, it's never just one thing. There are elements of a residual haunting. There are elements of an intelligent haunting, and a lot of times there's elements of something being reflective.
Yeah.
Whether you have like a positive entity there, it's the spirit of someone, and you can verify through how it's manifesting, through things people have seen, that it does match up to a photograph of someone who was on that property, it's reflective. When the family's in a bad spot, everybody's arguing, money's tight, and they're stressed out, glasses are breaking, there's an oppressive feeling in the house, and that's just amplified and magnified by the entity that's there on property. But when we come in as investigators and we start saying, okay, so let's kind of change the vibe here. There's a lot of fighting, there's a lot of stuff going on. We start helping the family through. This is a counseling thing that you can go to. Why don't we get out and start? What do you enjoy doing? You like kayaking? You haven't been in 2 years? Let's jump out there and get you kayaking. And they start working together. We do these team building exercises with families, and the activity inside the house changes.
Mhm.
Even when there is an intelligence there that's communicating with us, that we were able to, I don't want to say verify, but we were able to there was strongly suggestive evidence that it was a prior occupant of the house. The activity changes. So this is what I'm talking about when I say complex hauntings. And when I start talking about activity being on a spectrum and not necessarily being able to drop it into one of 3 buckets, we really need to drill in and treat each haunting, treat each location as an individual, instead of saying this one's an I, this one's an R, this one's
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm glad you said about, the residential cases with the families and stuff, because a lot of times I found that animosity, wife might see something or husband may see something, and the partner or whoever doesn't agree with them or just puts them down. That does create a little bit of animosity, which does turn into different types of hauntings that we're talking about here. And that's one of the things I tell people during an investigation is, if you feel that aggression, anger, sadness, depression, whatever, step out of the house, go across the street, go down the road, go for a walk, see how you feel afterwards, see if that goes away. Go together, take a trip together, just get out of the house, get off property, because a lot of times I find these clients, they kind of push these experiences away, or they ignore things like imaginary friends with their children. Kids have imaginary friends, so to speak. That ends up being a spirit that might be there, and that animosity can turn into something more. And you're absolutely right with it being reflective. If all the parties are willing to talk to each other, work together, and stuff like that, it's usually just a knock here and there. You hear hello, you hear some random music. But if there is a lot of arguing and fighting, it is a little bit more on the negative side.
There's a couple of reasons for that. It might be that there's just a strong source of energy or food for them to feed on, and that's they ramp it up. Maybe they get a taste for it. And this is where it gets really hard to categorize a haunting. Like when you're going in and you're doing residential cases, people want answers. They're not bringing well, okay, sometimes they are because of the TV shows and stuff now.
This is true.
They're not just wanting to say, "Come look at my ghost. It's really cool." A lot of them are looking for answers. They're scared. There's a bunch of weird crap going on in their house and they want help. And it helps. What helps the most is understanding. They're able to put things into a box. So with a haunting, when I go in and I do an investigation, we're getting intelligent EVPs back. Awesome. Okay, so you've been seeing apparitions around the house. What does it look like? It's a lot of times it's going to be shadows. It's going to be like, I've gotten a lot of people talking about balls of light moving through their house, not on camera, like basketball, softball size, luminescent orbs floating through the house. Those are the only orbs that I take seriously. Unless there's something on camera that correlates with something else that happened that we recorded.
That's a whole another topic.
Yeah, no, that's a whole episode in and of itself. But like, we have to look at that. Okay, so this looks like it is presenting as an intelligent haunting. Then we look in the house. Is there one person in particular who's been experiencing everything, or who is present for every manifestation? Because with poltergeist human agent, sometimes it presents like it's a separate entity or a separate intelligence from the host. So we check that. And the only way to do that is to make sure that people are journaling properly and they're accounting for everyone that's inside the home when a manifestation happens. marking down if you've been in a fight recently also helps. If you're doing journaling for this, like if you're someone who's experiencing a haunting, you're working with a team or you're working with a family and you want to guide them. If there's been a fight or someone looks upset or is going through something, just make a note of that when you're making the the entry into the journal. And then we go through and we see a pattern. We're like, okay, so this is happening when Susie is home. Susie is, the age that generally you're going to have poltergeist activity. So we're going to keep moving forward with what we do for intelligent hauntings, but we're also going to look at poltergeist activity and let's find out if Susie's got anything going in her life that's stressful. Okay, bullying or whatnot. What's going on at school? Let's address that. See if activity dies down. You got two possibilities: an intelligent haunting where the entity is looking out and I don't want to say attached because that has all these attachments to it,
Yeah.
but has taken a liking to Susie and it's pissed off because she's in a bad mood. Or Susie's subconscious is manifesting and saying a bunch of stuff out loud that she doesn't feel comfortable saying.
Mhm.
So counseling helps with that. Getting the issue taken care of takes care of that. But I also want to do some stuff where we take Susie out of that home, have the family go somewhere else, and see if that activity happens somewhere else. With a poltergeist human agent, that activity is not going to be linked to the property. It's going to move.
Yep.
So if they go stay in a hotel, take a vacation, get out of town for, a week, 2 weeks, and that activity still happens, we know we probably have human agent.
Yep.
If the activity only happens in the house, then we know we have something property related. It's either going to be an intelligent entity or it's going to be something about that property that is reflective. Both things are taken care of the same way.
Yep.
Shitload of positive energy pumped into the house.
I want to take a step back real quick if we can, brother. A lot of times people will hear that word poltergeist and immediately go to another classification, demonic.
Mm.
I just want to say, in my opinion, they're two completely separate things. A poltergeist does not always mean demonic. And thanks to Hollywood, that those two are linked for some reason. And if anybody listening to this feels like there is a poltergeist or hears that word poltergeist, don't shy away from it. It is not always demonic. Your demonics are rare, extremely rare. More than likely, it is like what Tanner's talking about. It is some sort of intelligent. But I just wanted to touch that because I know a lot of times we've been saying poltergeist a lot, and I know a lot of people get a little with it. So I just wanted to clarify.
No, and with this, we don't know what it is. So
Mhm.
with when we're talking about a reflective haunting where there is a separate energy there that is it's not it doesn't have a personality the way that we think of it,
Mhm.
but it's some sort of other thing. It could be transdimensional, it could be something that we haven't talked about or seen really yet. But it just picks up those characteristics of the people there in the house and
Yeah.
maybe it's just there to watch. We don't really know what's going on there. Maybe it's just there to feed because it picks up human emotion and likes to feed off that energy or likes to interact with that energy in some way. It's taken care of the same. There are certain things that feed and really, really get into negative energy because we, as humans, we make a lot of it. And when we're mad, when we're angry, when we're fuming, we let that leak out more than any other type of emotion that we feel. So there are things that have a taste for it. And I think those things end up being what we call demons. Now, I don't believe in the whole heaven, hell, God, devil stuff. But I do think that there are these things that are inhuman, like interdimensional. We would think of them more as like a non-corporeal being that just has a taste for dark crap. And they're taken care of the same way. Massive blasts of positive energy. I think I've talked about it on the podcast before. Why I think exorcisms work. I think it's just a massive blast of positive energy. And if you've studied how exorcisms work and how that type of thing works, it's not just one ritual and it's one
Yeah.
and done and over.
No,
It's
no.
months long. It's a year-long process. There's mandatory counseling involved with it. There's a bunch of stuff that you've got to do to make yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually, however you want to make that distinction, strong. And then through the ritual, it's just a massive blast of positive energy to get them out. I think that energy has more to do with the expulsion of an entity like that than the actual whatever deity you're using, because it works across pretty much all religions. It's just whatever the host family believes.
Yeah, and I know a lot of times Catholicism takes the forefront for it as far as we do this. Well, you're right. Other religions do as well. Especially a lot of the African tribes and stuff. They do a lot of that stuff. I actually think it's really fun and cool to watch. Not fun for the inflicted, but it's still fun to watch.
It's interesting. Like every culture's got it. Every religion has it. Um, I've heard it called deliverance ministry.
Mhm.
There's a couple of different things there. There's getting people off drugs and out of different things, but it's also dealing with this stuff as it pops up. But it has to be classified properly. And that's one thing that I do like, specifically about the Catholics, is that they have to quantify the haunting. They have to classify it. It has to actually be, quote, a demon or spirit under the domain of God.
Yeah.
So I do like that there's that stipulation for transdimensional being, something from another religion,
Mhm.
something that is not this particular specific entity. I do
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, and they also want names too. If you can
Yeah.
get names, it's really funny. I think I forget where I heard it, but they actually have on this application process for the Vatican a name of demonic entity. It's like, okay, so, name, social security, birth, birth date, all that stuff is
Mhm.
blood type, mother's
Rank.
maiden name.
What's your Facebook
Mm.
password?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
But I
Unlock your phone
do.
for me.
Yeah, right. Facial recognition. But there is something that you said, and I think a lot of teams do miss, and that's the geographic side of
Mhm.
a haunting. Believe it or not, when I used to run teams, we used to get geological surveys of the properties or the land or the borough, wherever they're at, towns. And I think it's a really missed key factor. I don't even want to say focal point, but it is something that needs to be looked at because I couldn't tell you how many times these individuals would call and say they have this going on, that going on. And they did. They had a lot of activity going on, but the why wasn't there. We found out the who's and the what's, but we couldn't figure out the whys. And that's a whole thing that needs to be done, especially if you're going to be an actual investigator. And come to find out, they're on either a water table, so they've got, wells, so they've got a lot of water underneath. They've got underground creeks or rivers, whatever you want to call them. They're on limestone, granite, marble, you name it. And a lot of people don't realize how much energy those types of things give off, especially water. Uh, we actually, at work, they were using dowsing rods to find the water mains. And they're walking around. And I'm laughing because they're using them wrong. But one of the guys says, "Hey, I've seen ghost hunters do that," and I'm just like, talking to the right person. And lo and behold, that's the same principle. Same principle. You use the dowsing rods, and that's one of the reasons why investigators use them. Is we use them for not just communication and dowsing, but you're also doing it. You should be doing it to see if there's any type of energy fluctuation in the area, in the ground.
Mhm.
And I couldn't tell you how many times I've run across that.
Yeah, and that's when we get into like the classification when you're really drilling into things. So we talked about those big three: intelligent, residual, poltergeist.
Mm.
When we're looking at intelligent hauntings, there are categories under intelligence and boxes that need to be checked there. Um, with something that is linked more toward elemental stuff like water, like the things on the ground. We look at things and we want to think that all ghosts are human spirits, all hauntings are caused by human spirits, or there's the camp where all hauntings are caused by demons. There's also something that everybody has, like every culture has its elemental spirits. And for those of you who are new to ghost hunting and you're like, what's elemental? Could an elemental be a demon or whatever? I'm just going to say this once. We say elementals so we don't sound like lunatics talking about fairies.
100%
It's
right.
the same thing. It's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So these would be natural spirits linked to water, linked to the land, linked to something outside of us.
Yeah.
Some people look at them as transdimensional spirits or transdimensional entities, but they do seem to be linked more to nature. So we call them elemental spirits,
Mhm.
fire, water, air. They seem to have some sort of flavor for that.
Oh, I like that.
Extremely unpredictable and no real personality or known drives that match up to anything that we would recognize as a biological drive as a human. I think that's where we get a lot of the reflective hauntings from. So whenever we have a reflective haunting where it looks like an actual intelligent entity there on the property, that's when I start looking more into, is it elemental? And feeding positive energy in there is great, but what does it want? Is it linked to a certain spot on the property? Is there water underneath? Do we have a lot of quartz? Do we have a lot of limestone?
Yeah. The only thing I will add to that is, well, I won't, and Tanner and I go back and forth. We said this before, and we both have differing opinions. But the only drive I see, and I've noticed, is territorial. You're in their area. A lot of these elementals are very territorial. Look at fairy circles, especially across the pond. It's almost faux pas, to, if you will, to step in one of them. It's basically an insult. You're insulting these elemental spirits, and even here in Pennsylvania, you have them. I ran into them. I've seen them, and there has been activity that is hard to explain, other than it's an elemental.
Mhm. And this is part of like going back the property itself. I think I did an episode a while back where I talked about historical societies and really digging in there.
Mhm,
They'll know what Native American tribes, what original indigenous people were here, and they'll know a lot about the lore.
mhm,
When you dig in, specifically here, when the Appalachian Mountains, the lore here and the natural earth-based, not earth-based, but the nature-based spirits here are insanely similar to the Highland spirits and the Celtic spirits, in the same mountain range. The Appalachian Mountains actually go through the US, under the ocean, and then pop back up in the UK.
mhm,
It's the same mountain range. It's why so many people from Scotland settled here in this area. My heritage is mainly Scottish. But the lore between the natives and the Scots was very, very similar. It's one of the reasons that they got along.
mhm.
Um, so I thought that was interesting. So when we were talking about elemental spirits, it's a concept that is cross. I was going to say cross generational, but cross cultural.
I think both are correct. And it's funny you mentioned the Appalachian Mountains, and they're in here too. And actually, my town is right along them. I
Mhm,
mean, we're right in it. And a lot of times, like this one spot I did for Global Ghost Hunt, we're right by this creek. That's right next to one of the mountain ranges, part of the mountain. Like you're literally on the backside of a mountain, and
mhm.
that creek has a lot of weird anomalies that come
Yeah.
up. There's been rumors or lore, if you will, of fairies, fays. You'll hear them a lot. Those are the main ones, but even trolls, gnomes, stuff like that. That's
Mhm,
apparently in that area. Now, a lot of black bear, but as far as the paranormal side, that's a lot that comes up, and you'll run into it. And I think you can't consider yourself a true investigator until you're doing your due diligence and looking at all aspects. You may not believe it, mind you, but you have to do your due diligence and look into every aspect of it and be
mhm.
open to it. If you would have told me, 20 plus years ago that, I'd be sitting here talking about fairies, I'd been like, what, Tinkerbell?
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Like
Same,
that's
same.
that's the way I would think about it. Or Tooth Fairy. It's like good luck. But it happens. That stuff does happen. And I think just like Bigfoot recently. I don't know what the thing with Bigfoot's been, but there's been a
Mhm.
lot of Bigfoot sightings, especially there was one here in State College. But with the amount of technology we have, it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time before somebody catches something.
Yeah. Well, like with the whole you're bringing up Bigfoot, the natives in this area had, legends about tree spirits, and
Hmm.
the description matches up to super close to Bigfoot, but it was
Hmm.
an inter we would consider it an interdimensional being.
Hmm.
There's, if you look at missing 411 and you look at all the people that have gone missing and the Bigfoot sightings around national parks in the US, they line up, and there's a theory, I call it a theory, there's an idea or a belief that Bigfoot's not an earthbound biological creature.
Mhm.
It's a or they are an interdimensional species that travels via these portals, and the national parks were set up to safeguard these portals. Now, this is getting off in stuff that I do on my other podcast called Truly Odd, where we get really into the weird stuff. But I mean,
Hey.
as I've been investigating this for the past 25 years, I see a lot of things that line up between aliens. Oh, that's another thing with complex hauntings, between alien sightings, cryptid sightings, and hauntings.
Mhm.
They usually happen in clusters. You'll have like a what do they call, a UFO flap with sightings of Bigfoot or some sort of local cryptid, and then you'll have a string of hauntings that flare up, like poltergeist style things flying around hauntings that just flare up around the same time. I'm not saying it's connected, but I'm saying maybe something there with the energy like pulls everything up, or it goes back to the classification thing. Like, we're all looking for the answer. We're looking to put things into buckets and to classify them. But if we look at the spectrum, I mean, we could be looking at the same thing. It's all just, it all ends up being transdimensional beings, or it ends up being 1,000 different things that interact in a way that we just don't understand because we can't see that side of things yet. It's
Yeah.
wide open.
Well, first of all, you had me on the show, so you know it was going to get weird. Secondly, I think it is. You're right. There is the three main ones that we are looking at, the intelligent and all that stuff. But folks, you're looking at tip of the iceberg here. You can take any of them, whether it's residual, intelligent, poltergeist, and break it down into literally dozens and dozens of classes. You can't just say, okay, well, it's a residual. Okay, well, what type of residual? It's a lot. And what I love, especially with the intelligent ones, is like we just said, you can take intelligence and run it into humanoid spirits. You can run it into cryptids. You can run it into this, to that, and whatever. But all these boxes have to be checked before you even decide how to classify it.
Yeah, and that when I look at doing more content, because with like I said earlier, like this is my full-time job now, so I actually have time to write the books and actually make the stuff for people to use for their teams and crap now, is putting together those checklists and really looking and drilling into, if we're looking at classifying not just hauntings, if we're investigating across the board, because I branched out. I'm not just doing hauntings anymore. I'm starting to look into the history of UFO sightings. I'm starting to look into extraterrestrial life, cryptid sightings, and just getting out and really looking at everything. How do we classify? And then when we bring it back into the hauntings, like if somebody's got activity going on in their house, and I'm building these guides out for people who are not ghost hunters to be able to look at stuff on their own, because all of the money is kind of dried up here as far as getting that, reality TV money, which is not as much as you think. But there's a lot of people getting out because you're not getting famous doing this stuff anymore. And it's becoming what it used to be when I first got into it, where it's just about finding the answers and really understanding what's going on, and building these workbooks and resources for people who are going through hauntings because they don't have a team in their area. And I would love to be able to fly around the country, but I don't make that kind of money doing this. I can pay the bills between this, and I do audiobook narrations where all of this sound stuff came from. But getting that stuff together for people to use so that they can sit down and take notes and journal things out and say, this activity happened, so I'm going to try this, this, and this. Okay, so the answer from that was like ABC, this happened. Let's move into this. And by the end of that process, which, guys, just buckle in because it's going to take months, you'll have something akin to an answer, and you'll know, oh, this is something that I need to just watch my mood. This is something I can live with, or just a weird paranormal quirk in my house, or I should call a priest.
Yeah.
That's and I don't believe in that. And I'm saying call a priest because I've seen it work. Yeah.
And I will say this: a lot of people will use that response. I don't have a team near me. I'm going to bet you guys any amount of money, if you start asking the question, you'll find there's a team near you.
There's a danger there. So in putting up, I was building the Ghost Hunter Advice Network so that we have like a national, so I had people like, if you're in Arizona, I can call this person to get out. Or if you're in Canada in this little area, I can call this person. in vetting those teams, you'll find a ghost hunting team in any old town, but they might make the situation worse because they've never read a book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there is a side note to that. You will find a team, but do your due diligence. Investigate the team investigating. And if you need any advice with it, obviously go to Tanner. Go to Tanner.
Yeah,
Or go
yeah,
to,
either one of us, Ghost Hunter Advice, paranormal consultant. You can email me at ghosthunteradvice@gmail.com. Go over to ghosthunteradvice.com. You can send me a voicemail or anything through there with your story or what's going on. Or every Saturday at 2 p.m., I'm going to be on here, answering questions. Just pop those down in the comments in the chat section there on YouTube, and we'll get to those as they pop up. Or do what you guys have been doing for the past 5 years and email me those questions to ghosthunteradvice@gmail.com. I'll answer them on air, and we'll have a back and forth. I've actually had several of my own, what I consider cases now, that have come through consulting, and I won't be able to get out to Las Vegas. I got a lot of people from Las Vegas reaching out.
Sin
Yeah.
City,
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's interesting. It's got its own flavor of haunting and activity out there. I love Vegas ghost stories and the Vegas cases because there's just so much history in that city.
Well, I'll
But
tell
I
you,
can't fly out there.
I'll tell you, I investigated over in the West Coast and the East Coast, and West Coast style hauntings are so different.
Mhm.
Like when I was in San Diego and investigating there in LA and even parts of Arizona, it's weird. It is a definite weird vibe. It's something that you don't see here on the East Coast, and in a sense, I miss it, but in a
Yeah.
sense, I don't.
Well, you got to think of who went out there and what's the history
Mhm.
of that area. You've got people that went out there for gold. You've got actors that went out there. I'm a voice actor. So that is what's allowing me to do this full time is voice acting and doing audiobook narration and just being in the audio. When I say I'm full time into this, I mean I'm full time in audio production. The acting is it's an expulsion of emotion, so that you can live in these roles so that, like, when I'm doing an audiobook, I live in that dialogue, and acting is pushing a lot of yourself out into the world.
Mhm.
And a lot of these West Coast hauntings, especially when we're thinking West Coast, we're thinking around the LA area, these haunted Hollywood type hauntings, those were people that their job and their entire life was bleeding emotion out onto camera lenses and bleeding emotion out into the world to have it recorded.
Mhm.
What else is gonna give you a residual haunting, other than a war? Uh,
Mhm.
yeah, it's a different place because it's a different type of person, very, very emotional, very in touch with that energetic side of themselves.
Mhm.
I've met a lot of just awesome people, from acting who I'm like, "Okay, cool, that person knows how to emote." And then I go back into when I was doing, like, a corporate job, I go back into my corporate tech sales job, and I'm like, "There's no emotion here."
Mhm.
Nobody yeah, nobody wants to show weakness.
It's funny you say about no emotion. That was one of my critiques because you know what project I'm working on for Global Ghost Hunt. We talked about it this week. Just even recording it, I was like, "There's no emotion. I'm boring. I need to read. I got to read." Like I was sitting there, I must have done at least 40 different takes. I'm like, even criticizing myself while it's recording. I'm like, "No, I don't like that. Got to be more emotional. I got to do this. I got to like." It was. I was arguing with myself completely during that whole series.
Dude, have an imaginary friend. When I'm doing solo podcasts, the microphone, and I learned this from a voice acting coach way, way back, or no, a radio guy way back in the day when I first started doing this and I went for advice. They said that microphone is a person, have a conversation with a microphone.
Mhm.
And that has helped more than anything with everything I've done in the audio space.
And see, I had a conversation with myself, well, with all 9 of my personalities, except for the German one. He's just kind of weird. Um, but no, it was weird because I'm sitting there and I was literally having this conversation with myself, saying, "Come on, you got to do better than this. It has to be done this way. This is the way you want it done." And I'd stop myself halfway through, like I was on a roll, and I just would stop myself, be like, "I didn't like that. No, screw that. I'm going to do this." And I'm glad we're talking about the emotional side of it because when you're investigating, you have to be like that. You have to when you're asking these questions. I don't know. how many times I've seen these investigators, and nothing against them, but they go out and it's always the same drawn out. What's your name? Who's here? No, have a conversation. And it's like you said, one way to help classify is use your own emotions. If it's positive, be positive with it. If it's a question mark, you don't know who's there, be positive anyway, because that's the type of response you'll get. I couldn't tell you how many times I was doing an EVP session and I'd ask those questions, who's here with me? My name's Matt, blah, blah, blah. What's your favorite food? What's it like to die? Do you know your dad? Who's your favorite sports team? What do you think of the current president? I'd throw whatever I could think of out there, and I would get better responses that way.
Mhm.
Or I
Yeah,
would get scratched.
conversations, man.
Or I get scratched, which was I always get scratched in my mouth. I don't know why. I'm like a paranormal scratching post. It's weird.
And dude, my favorite place to go do EVP experiments now is Confederate Cemetery. It was the site of a hospital. It was a field hospital during the war,
Mm.
and it's a mass grave site now because they buried body parts that were lobbed off, and they buried people that died there. They treated both Confederate and Union soldiers, and it was just this mass grave.
Oh wow.
I get more steadily get more EVPs there than anywhere else that I've been. I can go daytime, I can go nighttime. I get the same level of activity there. And it's
Mm.
because you just sit down and start having a conversation with the air and then just
Hmm.
go back and listen to the answers.
Well, speaking of which, not to little sneak preview for your listeners. For this year's Global Ghost Hunt, the Wicked Queen and myself are going to be going to a specific location that we did a public investigation at. I don't know if I've told you this, but I set down a recorder and left it static. Just put it in a room, just by itself. Everybody left it alone. When I started doing my review, I had over 100 anomalies within the first 15 minutes. I've never had that. It was like constant, and I can hear the outside interference. I can hear the trash. I can hear all that stuff. I can hear that, but there's stuff still embedded in this stuff. At least 100 of them within 15 minutes, and I'm like, holy crap! I can't wait to go back. And it's a beautiful location, absolutely stunning. But I just had to say that. You said about all
No,
these
that's awesome.
EVPs. I was at this hospital. I'm like, I can't wait. Made me think of it.
We've got one here, man. Old South Pittsburgh Hospital has been on my list forever. I've gone up. It
Yes.
was there was a time where it was not owned by anyone,
Hmm.
and I went up in the parking lot and just did an EVP, or I didn't think it was owned by anybody, but it wasn't open for ghost hunting. I'll say that. But it's an interesting spot. Sam, who's going to be on next month's episode here, she works there. She volunteers there and is in the hospital all the time. I'm looking forward to hearing some of her stories about it.
Oh.
But they do public hunts, so you can rent it out for the night where you go in there. And I've gone back and forth on whether I wanted to do that because I do this solo.
Mhm.
It's a big building, so I would probably bring in a couple of friends. Yeah, no, if I yeah, I'd
For
bring you
those of
in.
you who are listening, I just gave Tanner a really nice look.
Yes,
No,
yeah, no, I would bring you down to do that.
I think
And it's yeah,
I
go
have
ahead.
to go back and look, but I think our brother Raymond Newsom, I think he did South
He did.
Pittsburgh Hospital. I was going to say, I remember hearing that come up in conversation. And I remember talking to it was him about it, and he said it was great. He
Mhm.
absolutely loved it.
It's a beautiful building.
Hmm.
They've got some great stories there. There's one part of the hospital where there's just a very dark entity that most people stay away from that area, but it's there's a ton of activity. There's a weird feeling around, and like I don't consider myself a medium or psychic or any
Yeah.
of that stuff, and I don't know how I feel about that. But you can feel it when you go up there and when you're around that building. I was a private investigator and I did a lot of surveillance for workers' comp up in South Pittsburgh. Whenever I was in the area, and this is going back 20-ish years. Like I would when I would go near that hospital building, or I would use, the parking lot to set up for surveillance. It had a feeling to it that was just different.
Yeah. And what I found too is a lot of the reports really mimic Waverly Hill Sanatorium,
Yeah.
which I find really interesting that those two, I mean, almost minus the one, there's one male entity over at Waverly Hills. I think it's one of the caretakers that is known to haunt that location. Minus him, activity is about the same. It's a mirror image of each other, and
Mhm.
I mean it's completely different than the Penhursts. Like Queen and I did Penhurst, and you get all these reports and stuff like that, but nothing like that. Nothing like South
Mhm.
Pittsburgh or Waverly.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I really like. You're involved with Global Ghost Hunt that Brian Laverty has, that system he created. Um, you hear about Waverly Hills, you hear about, like, Penn State and, what's the one I'm thinking of, the penitentiary?
Eastern State.
Eastern State Penitentiary, yeah.
Hmm.
So you see those on the television shows, you see those like everywhere throughout media, but there are places like Old South Pittsburgh Hospital that are as active or more active than these larger, well, more established locations in the field,
Hmm.
and they're everywhere. And what I like about what you guys do at Global Ghost Hunt is you spotlight that. And
Yeah.
you're collecting evidence, and you're getting the word out about these other locations that are nowhere near as expensive as some of these other spots and are way more active.
100%.
Yeah.
And not as a plug, if you will, but no, that is one of the reasons why I love being a part of the Global Ghost Hunt, as far as the admin staff. And I've said this on GGH Live, our podcast. The event was created to spotlight these teams, 100%, absolutely. But it's the locations that really are the driving force behind it, and that's something we're trying to highlight this year. Places not so well known, like the place I'm going to. I'll just say it. It's the 1890 house up in New York.
Oh,
Um,
nice. Yeah.
yes, and I know Lost Souls Paranormal. They did. I think they did it the one year, but or last year they did something. But anyway, they're involved with the board of directors up there. They also did the Haunted Tully Lodge, which is up in that area too. Those two locations have a lot of activity. And that's the whole point of the global ghost hunt is you see these locations, you get to virtually investigate them and get them on your wish list and hopefully get a little bit of revenue into these locations because it is a
Mhm.
lot to keep them up. But the flip side of that coin too is like we've had a lot of well-known locations like Queen and I did Penhurst for the global ghost hunt. You can virtually investigate it. If you can't afford to go or you've always wanted to go, but you just can't do it, you can virtually investigate it. So it's just like you're there. And that's one thing I absolutely love about what we're doing. And again, the downside is your wish list gets a lot longer. Like my
Mhm.
bucket list doubled in size.
Well, the good thing also is, like, with places like this with, not Eastern State, with, Old South Pittsburgh Hospital, hotel rooms are cheap.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's, your travel expenses will go way down, and also because you're so spread out, people can find locations that are closer to them. Here, like, I'm in Chattanooga, I've got, uh, Old South Pittsburgh Hospital, we got the Bell Witch Cave, I've done the Bell Witch Cave.
Mhm.
That cave is gorgeous. Got absolutely nothing, no weird feelings or anything, but that cave is gorgeous.
Mm.
Did let's see, we got a couple of old hospitals and asylums and stuff that have closed down, but if you look and you kinda plug into things like, Global Ghost Hunt, you'll find some pretty cool locations local that will get you what you want.
Well, and there's a place here close by, Centralia.
Mhm.
A lot of people may sound familiar to you, but Silent Hill,
Yeah.
that's where that came from, is Centralia. There is literally a town within a half hour of me that is burning. There is an active fire going on underground. A lot of history there.
Mhm.
It's very hot there. No, there are vents that you can still feel the heat. You can feel the heat from that fire. Great place to investigate. We did that for the Global Ghost Hunt. And I'll tell you, hotels around my area, cheap. You want to talk cheap? You got $20. Here you go. But and you have Gettysburg within, an hour and a half drive, or a lot of places you might not even know about. A lot of your national parks or state parks or town parks even have a lot of history. And then I know that's one that we did was a trail Robbins Trail for the Global Ghost Hunt. It's virgin territory. Nobody's ever investigated there before us. But that's where we found a lot of this Fey activity and stuff like that in the elementals. But yeah, you never know. Never know where an active haunted site is.
And again, like having access to this, watching Global Ghost Hunt, watching other teams, networking with other teams and building communities, you get to see these different locations and you get to hear about different activity. There's staples when we're looking at hauntings, we're looking at stuff. Just about everywhere is going to have weird footsteps. Just about everywhere is going to have some sort of disembodied voice or feeling of dread.
Hmm.
And those are the things that we kind of look for to see if there's anything happening there at all. Those are easy to capture. There was air quotes for those of you who are listening on the podcast feed. Um, but then it just kind of explodes from there.
Yeah.
And each haunting, each location is different. Each residential house that you go into, it's going to be totally different. And you're starting from ground zero.
Yeah.
So the big point that I wanted to drive home today, and we've been kind of all over the place, but it is all over the place. Each haunting is different. Each location is going to be different. And if you go in and prematurely say residual haunting, if you go in and stick a hard label on something, it's going to put you in a bad situation when you start getting all of this additional activity as the investigation proceeds that doesn't match with your initial reading. It also looks really bad to the client, and it makes them feel more uncomfortable because going back to what I said earlier, they're looking for comfort. They're looking for an answer.
Yeah.
And
We have a thing in the paranormal field called power of suggestion. And a lot of times you do that to yourself. You hear the clients, reports, what they're experiencing, stuff like that. And before you step foot, you already have it in your mind. Oh, that's a residual. Don't do that. Use your experiences to help you find it, but go in with a clean slate.
Mhm.
To be honest with you, I listen completely to my clientele, what they tell me, what's going on. I forget all about it by the time I step in because I look at it as nobody knows what's going on because you never know what the clients can tell you or something completely different. I can explain what's going on to Tanner, but it may be something completely different. And you don't want to do that to yourself. Don't power up suggest yourself.
And this is where like having a system comes in. Like we're every situation that you go into is different, but an investigation is a systematic approach.
Exactly.
Um, so whatever we do, when I go in to set up, I know residential haunting. I'm going to take my base readings. I'm going to go and I'm going to take my photographs. I'm going to document the environment. I'm going to make out my map, no matter if the activity being described is residential, intelligent, whatever it is. And then I'm going to set up and start running experiments. I'm going to look at what was told to me, and I'm going to outline what experiments that I'm going to move forward with, when I'm going to do them, how I'm going to set them up. But I'm never going to pigeonhole myself in by treating treating a haunting as just intelligent or just residual or just poltergeist agent, because there's so much crossover between those. Like I said, with a poltergeist agent, it could be the person, or it could be a poltergeist agent with the person, or it could be something on the property. They present very, very similar.
Hmm.
And based on what I see off those preliminary tests, I'm going to branch off and move the person out of the house or start doing more things there's things that I don't want to get into to test what's happening on emotionally there in the house,
Yeah.
and to dial things in. But it is a systematic approach, and you're constantly drilling down to get your answer, and you might have more than one answer.
Yeah. That is very possible.
Cool. All right, so that's that's all I've got. When we do these, if you guys have questions, email those into ghosthunteradvice.com. Email those into ghosthunteradvice@gmail.com. Check me out over at ghosthunteradvice.com, and check out my other podcast if you want to get really, really weird, called Truly Odd, where Kristen and I break down paranormal and just weird stuff going on in the world. Make sure to check out Truly Odd Teas. It's trulyoddteas.com. Use promo code GhostHunter10 for 10% off your order. Orders over $75 ship free. Matt, where can they find you?
You're talking to the right person. You can find me pretty much anywhere. We've mentioned Global Ghost Hunt, obviously. Go check us out at globalghosthunt.com if you're interested in being a part of it. This year, just like last, is completely free to investigate. We are not charging anything. So just go ahead on over to globalghosthunt.com. All the info is there. Sign up today. Registration is open until the end of August, so spots are very limited, guys. For me personally, you can find me on Paranormal Consultant on Facebook, YouTube, pretty much everywhere, any social media. And then just like with Tanner, feel free to message me at any time. I'm pretty open, and I can cause a lot of chaos, as Tanner will attest to.
So much. So much.
But you keep bringing me back, so that must mean you're a glutton for punishment. I'm joking, brother. You know I love you.
All right, guys. Mutual. Let's we'll go ahead and pop out of here. Thanks for listening to Ghost Hunter Advice Live. Keep those questions coming in. I will see you all live next month, which will put us at April 25th at 2 p.m. I'm going to be joined by Sam from oh man, she's not Mystique Paranormal anymore. It's Scenic City Paranormal. Yeah, so I've known her for a long time. She's an amazing investigator. We're going to be talking about team building and answering your questions.
I'll be there.
So I will see you guys there. Click through all the buttons.